Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a really fascinating topic today. Takes us way beyond just, typical movie analysis.
Right.
Our source material is this intriguing review of Disney's 2015 film Tomorrowland. It's by Noel Joshua Hadley, called Tomorrowland, Camps of the Saints and the Blessed Land.
Yeah, I read that one. It's quite something.
It is. What's compelling is how the author peels back the layers, a seemingly family-friendly sci-fi movie.
Right, it looks like one thing on the surface.
Exactly. But they argue it's actually this profound Gnostic narrative.
Gnostic, yeah. Connecting to ancient beliefs, hidden realms.
Yeah.
Even a secret battle for humanity's future, according to them.
So our mission here is to kind of navigate these layers, pull out the nuggets of insight that this author believes might just change how you look at popular culture.
Exactly. This deep dive isn't really just about reviewing a movie, is it?
No.
It's about understanding how certain narratives can be read, interpreted, as maybe conveying much older sort of esoteric ideas. The author presents Tomorrowland as way more than just, quote, time traveler fan fiction.
Right.
Suggesting direct tie-ins to their own research on something they call the hidden wilderness. They even point to the movie's international subtitle, A World Beyond.
Oh, okay.
And explicitly connect that to what they call the Blessed Land and its immortal inhabitants.
So it raises this question, doesn't it? For you, the listener,
Yeah.
What if the stories we consume are, like the author suggests, confessional, revealing deeper truths? Or maybe intentions.
Yeah, it's a provocative idea.
So what does this all mean for us? We're going to explore how this source contends that Disney, not exactly known for tons of science fiction, right?
Not typically, no.
Offers this rare glimpse into a dimensional reality filled with technologically advanced citizens who secretly rule over us. That's the claim.
It's a big claim.
Yeah. So get ready to have your perceptions maybe broadened a bit, because this deep dive is packed with surprising claims and connections you might not hear anywhere else.
Okay, so diving into the film's core narrative, the author of our source argues Tomorrowland isn't really about time travel.
Time travel. Or Nikola Tesla, even.
Or Tesla, yeah, despite maybe how it looks. Instead, they call his narrative profound and deeply Gnostic.
Okay, Gnostic. For anyone maybe not familiar, what does that generally mean in this context?
Well, generally, Gnosticism refers to a set of ancient religious ideas. The core belief is often about secret knowledge, gnosis, being the path to salvation.
Salvation from what, though?
From what they saw as a flawed material world, created by a lesser being sometimes.
Gotcha. And central to that interpretation for Tomorrowland is the author's idea that the movie is really about the Blessed Land.
Exactly, the Blessed Land and its immortal inhabitants.
Which the source describes as what? New Jerusalem, City of Zion?
Yeah, those terms. A city that somehow touches down within our terrestrial realm.
That's a pretty wild claim to connect to a Disney movie.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And the author emphasizes Disney's sort of unusual venture into science fiction here. They see it as a rare offering.
How does it compare to other Disney sci-fi, like Tron?
Well, they contrast it with Tron. Legacy. They suggest Tron deals with singularity and transhumanism, but from what they call an occult point of view.
Okay.
So that distinction helps highlight their argument about Tomorrowland's unique dimensional reality interpretation. It's different in their view.
Now let's talk about those Disney logos, the iconic ones, because our source actually reinterprets them in a very specific way.
Oh yeah, the logos get a close look.
They look at the traditional Disney logo, the one with Tinkerbell, right? And they see her rainbow-like arch as forming the domed roof of the firmament, like the ancient idea of the sky being a solid dome.
Wow, okay. So Tinkerbell's arch is the firmament.
According to this view, yeah. The author even likens it to the Tower of Babel reaching skyward, piercing through the very floorboards of heaven.
That's quite an image.
And then there's this other claim. The author asserts Walt Disney attached a 666 to his signature.
Whoa, okay, that's a very bold assertion.
It is, and the author uses it to underscore what they see as these hidden symbolic patterns within the Disney brand itself. We should stress this is the author's claim.
Right, important clarification. Now, with the Tomorrowland movie, that traditional castle logo is swapped out.
It is, yeah, for a shining city of the future.
And the arch.
Not pixie dust this time. It's formed by a boy with his rocket.
Okay.
And the author suggests this implies that wizards and the priests of scientism are indistinguishable.
Scientism, meaning?
Well, the author uses it to mean a belief system where science is seen as the only valid source of knowledge, often excluding anything spiritual or metaphysical.
Got it. So science taking the place of magic, essentially.
Something like that. And what's compelling, according to the source, is that these visual changes aren't just, artistic choices.
Mm-hmm.
They're described as a confessional, reinforcing the author's whole idea that this blessed land resides within the greater terrestrial realm.
So, like, Disney is subtly admitting something. That's the interpretation.
That seems to be the gist of it, yeah. Almost revealing its hand.
Okay, moving from logos to the inspiration behind the movie. Tomorrowland, the film, was inspired by the theme park land, right?
Right, the Disneyland area.
And that land was, in turn, inspired by historical World's Fairs. So there's this layering effect.
And the author takes that World's Fair connection even deeper.
How so?
Proposing this theory that fairs like the 1893 Columbian Exposition weren't just temporary sets built for the fair.
No. What were they then?
According to this theory, they were actual old world cities that were somehow integrated or revealed.
Okay, that's a whole other rabbit hole, old world cities.
Yeah, and they argue this concept ties directly into the Tomorrowland plot, suggesting a kind of hidden, maybe covered up history.
Which leads to their take on Walt Disney himself.
Right. The source positions him not just as the animation genius or theme park visionary,
but as
a secret member of Tomorrowland society, portraying him as this backstage master of the arts and front stage motivator of human advancements.
Wow. So Walt as an insider to this hidden reality.
That's the idea presented. And you can apparently see this connection in theme park clues, too, according to the author.
Like what?
Well, Frank Walker's visit to the Hall of Invention in the movie, that's linked to Disney's Progress Land exhibit.
Which inspired Epcot's innovations, right?
Exactly. And those other Disney rides that debuted at the 1964 World's Fair, it's a small world, the Carousel of Progress.
They're seen as clues, too.
Presented as further clues, yeah. In fact, the Carousel of Progress soundtrack actually plays when Frank first arrives in Tomorrowland in the movie, a detail the author really highlights.
Interesting. And they analyze the lyrics, too, don't they?
Oh, deeply. The lyrics from Carousel of Progress, like, there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow shining at the end of every day.
Yeah.
They're interpreted as speaking of the blessed land and city of heaven.
Okay.
The place a pilgrim might find at the end of his or her life, with every day representing this carousel of generations.
So the song's about the afterlife, essentially, in this reading.
That's the interpretation. And the source goes on to claim Walt Disney's frequent use of the word dream.
Yeah, he did use that word a lot.
Was actually a hidden code.
A code? For what?
Hinting at, well, forgotten things, transistor radio receivers from the divine, even our pre-existence, the loss of paradise, our final destination.
Wow.
The author points out that for the ancients, there wasn't really a separation between sleep and death. It was all part of a continuum.
And the carousel itself, the ride.
The author interprets the Carousel of Progress as an Ouroboros.
The snake eating its tail.
Right. Signifying this cycle where society's tech achievements unfold on these world stages people watch.
Uh-huh.
And the author contends this cycle means the Nikola Teslas of the world either rediscover or reintroduce what was hidden or lost.
Okay, the innovators.
Only to have the Edisons block them at the pass, making slaves of us all. It's this cyclical view of progress constantly being suppressed.
A pretty cynical take on progress, then.
Definitely seems that way in this analysis. Okay, let's unpack the characters a bit.
Good idea.
The movie starts with older Frank Walker, George Clooney, right? And he breaks the fourth wall.
He does, yeah. Speaks directly to the audience.
Which our source sees as basically recruiting the viewer, pulling you into a rebellion.
Interesting. And his name, Frank Walker.
Significant, according to the source. Frank supposedly comes from Franca, meaning free.
Ah, connecting him to
Nikola Tesla's free energy and what the author calls millennial kingdom tech. And Walker.
Like Luke Skywalker.
Inspired by Skywalker, yeah. Implying crossing into ethereal realms.
Okay, so Frank is the free man crossing dimensions. And as an adult.
As an adult, Frank is associated with swift Mercury, messenger of the gods.
Mercury.
Right. Embodying qualities like financial gain, eloquence, communication, guiding souls. The source says this reflects an esoteric goal, conforming to the image of a chosen deity.
So Frank is modeling himself after Mercury.
That's the claim. And Frank is also linked by the author to the mythological centaur.
The centaur? Why?
Which, they suggest, implies a trajectory towards celibacy because of his connection with the character Athena later on.
Okay, that's a lot packed into one character. What about David Nix?
Nix, the man who rejects Frank's jetpack at the World's Fair.
Yeah.
He's immediately pegged by the author as the Demiurge of this Gnostic story.
The Demiurge, the flawed creator figure in Gnosticism.
Exactly. The author sees Nix as always there to block the neophyte, Frank, from escaping the evil material realm and achieving his spiritual destiny.
And the name Nix?
The author points out it means to cancel or stop something from happening. They see it as a deliberate choice.
Makes sense in that context. But Nix isn't just some guy, right? He's the governor of Tomorrowland.
He is, which complicates the author's blessed land theory, doesn't it, if the governor is the bad guy?
It does seem contradictory. How does the author resolve that?
They suggest that everything is reversed in movie land.
Ah, okay. So the movie's portrayal is flipped from the real situation.
That's the idea, aligning Nix's role with the kings of the earth conspiring against Pseudo-Messiah as described in Psalm 2 in the Bible.
So Nix represents earthly powers opposing the divine in this view.
Precisely. And speaking of names, Athena, the young girl who guides Frank.
Right. Athena, obviously named after the Greek goddess.
Goddess of wisdom, warfare, handicraft. Minerva in Roman myth. The owl is their symbol.
But the source doesn't see her as true wisdom, do they?
No, she's described as counterfeit wisdom. A leader in warfare, a weaver of characters.
Counterfeit what?
The author references the Bible, 2 Corinthians, about Satan disguising himself as an angel of light. They liken Athena to Lucy, or Lucifer, an enlightener who's actually working against the Demiurge, Nix.
So she's like light-fighting, flawed creation, but still not the ultimate good.
Something like that. It's complex. The author sees her embodying the donor archetype from myths and fairy tales.
The donor, like a fairy godmother.
Yeah, appearing to test the hero, provide magical help, like gods or fairy godmothers do.
And the source reveals she's not human.
Correct. She's an audio-animatronic robot, which explains why she doesn't age.
Ah.
They even note she came forth from her father's mind, just like the mythical Athena emerged fully formed from Zeus's forehead.
That's a clever parallel they draw.
And her mythological title, Athena Parthenos, Athena the Virgin, is brought up, suggesting she's a queen of heaven contender, and implying that Frank and Athena don't enter into, quote, the mystery rites of man and woman. They maintain a kind of platonic or celibate bond.
Okay. And she's on the run.
Ultimately, yeah. She's an animatronic built for recruiting, but she has gone rogue, become a fugitive on the loose from Nix's Tomorrowland, according to the source.
Okay, let's get into the pin. The mysterious pin.
Right, the T-pin. Athena gives Frank this orange lapel pin with a blue T.
And the source describes it as, what? Science and magic mixed.
Exactly. An infusion of science, magic, and even bibbidi-bobbidi-boo, where the two are just infused and indistinguishable.
Science is magic. Magic is science.
Yeah. And here's where the author's interpretation takes a very dark turn regarding the pin's use.
Okay.
It's a small world ride. The pin gets scanned. And this provides, according to the source, hidden transport to Tomorrowland via secret passageways and a portal.
A hidden portal on It's a Small World.
That's the claim. But the source goes further, mentioning alleged missing child reports and even a supposed pedo sign related to the ride.
Well, hold on. That's extremely serious and disturbing.
It absolutely is. And it's crucial we emphasize this is a highly controversial speculative claim made by the author in their review. It's presented as part of their interpretation of Disney's Threshold Covenant, but it's not a widely accepted fact by any means.
Understood. A very dark undertone in that specific interpretation. What about the pin itself, symbolically?
The pin itself is interpreted by the author as a mandala.
Mandala, Sanskrit for circle or center, right?
Exactly. A geometric configuration of symbols. They argue it establishes sacred spaces, helps practitioners achieve spiritual goals, represents unmanifest unity.
Like the identity discs in Tron Legacy?
They make that comparison, yeah. And the source emphasizes that this mandala can be seen as a labyrinth.
Labyrinth, not a maze.
Right. A labyrinth is for discovery, finding your way to the center, not a maze designed to confuse you.
Okay. And for Casey Newton, the other main character.
For Casey, who we meet later, the pin is presented as a test intended for problem solvers.
It's a test.
Yeah. Her first attempts to access Tomorrowland using it are blocked by her physical surroundings until she figures out how the physical can blend with the interdimensional, according to the author's reading anyway.
Okay, let's bring in Casey Newton then. A teenager, right?
Yep, teenager. We first see her sabotaging a NASA launch site, trying to stop its demolition.
And her name, Newton. Obviously a nod to Isaac Newton.
A clear nod, yeah. Though our source critiques the standard understanding of gravity and suggests Casey is supporting what they call the message, whatever that specifically entails.
And the author discusses her school experience.
They do, depicting it as full of doom and gloom lectures, global warming, overpopulation, dystopian novels.
Okay.
The source describes this environment as a propaganda machine and uses the controversial term woke mind virus. They even link her to Greta Thunberg.
Right, connecting her to contemporary activism.
Then the source pivots to NASA, arguing its popularity was dwindling around 2015.
Okay.
And claims NASA created an enemy via what the author calls the Flat Earth PSYOP to regain public interest.
A Flat Earth PSYOP. That's another highly specific and controversial claim.
Extremely. The author asserts YouTube shills controlled the truth narrative online. Again, this is purely the author's perspective presented in their review, including their assertion that the Earth is flat. We're just reporting their claims.
Understood. So Casey gets caught sabotaging.
She does, gets arrested. The author labels this her woke badge of honor, and she gets her pin at the police station.
And when she touches the pin,
instantly transported to a field of wheat with a shining city in the distance.
the blessed land again.
Identified by the author as Elysian Fields, the city of Zion, or New Jerusalem, Elysian Fields being the paradise in Greek myth, they compare it to a scene from Gladiator.
Visually striking. Where does she go next?
She enters a Tesla station,
Yep.
an obvious nod to Nikola Tesla, the author says,
Right.
but also linking, in the author's view, to Elon Musk and SpaceX, seeing them as the next generation of space-age futurism.
Okay, connecting past innovators to present ones.
Yeah, and the source even suggests Elon actions, like buying Twitter X, are somehow connected to the flat Earth community losing freedom of speech online. Another very specific and contentious claim by the author.
Right. Lots of specific interpretations tied together here.
Definitely. In Tomorrowland, Casey finds out her pin has a digital clock and its battery is counting down. Limited time there.
And then she meets an astronaut.
A teenage astronaut invites her onto a shuttle. The author calls this a threshold covenant.
An initiation, a crossing point.
Exactly. But when the pin's battery dies, poof, she's back in the material world.
Okay. Let's talk about Tomorrowland's technology itself. When Frank first arrives.
Yeah, back in the past, a droid mechanic instantly fixes his broken jetpack, just like that.
Showing how advanced they are.
Hugely advanced. The author argues Tomorrowland's citizens are vastly advanced beyond human reckoning, and they're clearly withholding technology from the world.
Withholding it.
Yeah. Even Walt Disney's own groundbreaking advancements in animatronics are deemed primitive compared to what Tomorrowland supposedly has.
So they have amazing tech, but keep it secret. Most people would see that as bad, right?
You'd think so. But here's a twist in the author's perspective. They argue this withholding is actually a good thing.
A good thing. Why?
They reference the Book of 1 Enoch, an apocryphal text. In it, the Watcher's fallen angels are condemned for giving forbidden knowledge, the mysteries of heaven, to humans, which led to corruption.
So giving advanced tech away too soon could be disastrous.
That's the argument. The true inhabitants of Zion, the author suggests, would instead instruct or inspire us from afar, nudging humanity to become little creators ourselves, rather than just handing over tech that could become, the bomb.
Interesting perspective. Okay, the plot moves forward. Casey tries to find another pin.
Right. She finds a website, tracks it to a memorabilia store in Houston called Blast from the Past.
Which turns out to be
a trap. A front designed to lure in the gullible pin owner, according to the author.
And the store owners.
Not human. They're revealed to be audio animatronics armed with Tomorrowland tech weapons.
Confirming Athena really has gone rogue from Nyx.
Exactly. And Athena shows up. The author describes her as a strategist, not a confrontationist, but she gets pretty violent.
I'll see.
Dismembering, impaling, ripping heads off these animatronics, all while the movie somehow maintains a PG rating. Then she leads Casey in a stolen car escape.
Intense. And then more agents show up.
Yeah, these Tomorrowland spooks. They look like Men in Black or Agent Smith from The Matrix.
Okay.
They arrive, self-detonate the store, and even evaporate a police officer who gets in the way.
Evaporate him.
Yeah. The author sees this as showing their total disdain for human life and proof of the Demiurge's desperation to keep eternity a secret.
It also explains Frank Walker's situation, right? He's in exile.
Exactly. He's exiled in the material world, unlike Athena, who's a fugitive from it. The author states that harboring Athena's recruits, like Casey, is basically a death sentence from Nyx.
So Casey finds Frank's hideout.
She does. A reclusive property, all overgrown, guarded by a hologram dog.
Cool. And inside?
Inside, he's got the secret room, full of TV monitors showing what the author calls the apocalyptic state of the world. Global warming, famine, riots, war.
Reinforcing his role as a watcher.
A watchman on the wall, yeah. Likened again to a centaur, observing but maybe apart.
And there's a countdown clock.
There is, showing 63 days until the end of the world.
63 days. Does the author find significance in that number?
Oh, absolutely. First, they point out the movie trailer apparently showed 63 days, 09 hours, 23 minutes, and 11 seconds.
Okay.
Which the author interprets as hidden dates. 9/23 and 9/11, seeing it as predictive programming.
9/11 and 9/23, connecting it to real-world dates and events.
Yes. They link 9/11 to a time loop theory and mention September 23, 2017 as the date of the Revelation 12 sign in the sky, suggesting it marked entry into a new spiritual paradigm.
Wow, and the number 63 itself.
The author highlights that the 63 is the combined numerical value gematria of the Tetragrammaton, YHWH, the four-letter Hebrew name of God.
Okay. Pointing, in their view, to the true leader of Tomorrowland, who opposes the Psalm 2 conspiracy involving Nyx.
So the number signifies God, opposing Nyx's plan. Deep numerology there.
Deeply interpretive, yeah. There's also a probability counter.
What does that show?
Initially, 100% certainty the world will end. But when Casey argues, disagrees with fatalism, it drops to 99.99%.
Showing she changed the future.
According to the film's logic, yes. And this is tied to Frank's invention, a tachyon machine.
Tachyons, hypothetical, faster-than-light particle.
Right. The author describes this machine as basically a scrying mirror, or the monitor.
A device for seeing the future, or influencing it.
Used, the author claims, by world empires to manipulate events, pushing things towards reset or singularity events.
So the machine itself is part of the problem.
Well, Frank and Nyx originally developed tech together. But back in 1984, Nyx shut down recruiting and banned Frank. Why? Because Frank's tachyon machine predicted Tomorrowland's destruction too.
So Nyx got scared. Nyx claims he started broadcasting the doom and gloom message to Earth, hoping humanity would see the warning and reverse course.
But the author doesn't buy that.
No. The source suggests Nyx secretly intends to allow the apocalypse to happen so that he can rebuild the world to his liking, using the disaster for his own ends.
And in case he realizes
that the machine's broadcast itself is creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Feeding despair makes the bad future inevitable.
The feedback loop of negativity.
Exactly, which leads towards the climax. Frank, Casey, and Athena need to get back to Tomorrowland.
How do they do it?
They use a teleportation device. The author likens it to CERN, actually.
CERN, the particle physics lab.
Yeah, it instantly transports them to the Eiffel Tower in Paris.
Okay.
Which is then revealed to be a giant, hidden steampunk space shuttle.
The Eiffel Tower is a spaceship.
For interdimensional travel, according to the movie and the author's interpretation.
It's inventive.
Yeah.
And this connects to the secret society.
Plus ultra, yeah. Founded, according to the movie, in 1889 at the Paris Exposition by Nikola Tesla, Thomas Edison, Jules Verne, and Gustave Eiffel. All futurists.
Quite a lineup.
The source notes Verne was a Freemason and Rosicrucian, adding another layer.
And this interdimensional travel, the author suggests it reframes space travel.
Big time. The movie implies, and the author agrees, that the conventional space program Mercury Apollo might have been fabricated plot lines, cover stories.
Cover for what?
To introduce this much older technology of interdimensional travel, and that UFOs and aliens aren't extraterrestrial, interdimensional agents, or even spiritual entities.
Okay, so aliens are dimensional beings, not from other planets, in this view. What about the name plus ultra?
Means further beyond in Latin. It's the national motto of Spain, actually.
Further beyond.
The author sees it as a 180 reversal of the old phrase non plus ultra, nothing further beyond, which supposedly marked the Pillars of Hercules at the edge of the known world.
So plus ultra signifies there's something beyond the known.
Precisely. The author also connects the phrase plus ultra to President Donald Trump, noting it appeared in tiles behind him in a photograph they reference.
Okay, a contemporary political connection noted by the source.
And the plus ultra members' own motto, Cres Noster.
Which means?
Tomorrow is ours. Indicating, in the author's interpretation, their intent to conquer the hidden city and the future.
So they arrive back in Tomorrowland.
only to find it in a state of decay, which the author blames on the Demiurge Nyx's mismanagement. And Nyx himself hasn't aged a day.
Marking him as an immortal in the author's view.
Right. Leading to the final confrontation.
They try to destroy the Tashian machine.
Yes. An attempt leads to an explosion that pins Nyx.
Yeah.
Then Athena sees a vision, the machine firing, Frank about to be shot.
And she sacrifices herself.
She jumps in the way, takes the blast, mortally wounded. She tells Frank to let her go so she can self-destruct.
Taking the machine and Nyx with her.
Exactly. Destroying the machine and killing Nyx.
Wow. So, what happens after that? A new beginning?
Sort of. Frank and Casey create a new group of animatronics, like Athena, give them commemorative pins.
And send them out.
Send them out to recruit new dreamers for the, quote, behemoth task of saving the world.
Spreading hope instead of doom.
That's the idea. The author interprets this ending through occult mottos like as above, so below, and order out of chaos.
But flips them.
Yeah. Saying, Tomorrowland flips these to align with the kingdom motto, on earth as it is in heaven. A positive inversion.
And the final shot.
Hundreds of people, all walks of life, appearing together in that field of wheat outside the shining city. Mass recruitment underway.
Okay. So, after all that, what does this all mean for you, the listener? This deep dive through the lens of this specific source suggests that nearly everything in the movie is, quote, wishful thinking on the part of our controllers, reflecting this Gnostic narrative.
Paradoxically?
Paradoxically, the author also claims it packs an incredible amount of truth for a supposed work of fiction.
So it's both controller propaganda and contains truth. That's complex. It is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it presents this fascinating idea, right? That popular culture can be seen through this author's framework, at least.
As either.
A confession of hidden agendas or a reflection of underlying spiritual truth. Maybe both simultaneously.
The source concludes that a city of tomorrow, which they equate with Jerusalem, truly exists within our realm.
With the field of wheat signaling the blessed realm.
Right, and that there are boots on the ground agents, maybe like Athena, working to inspire us to wake up the masses.
And here's where the author performs that final, really interesting flip on the movie's own narrative.
A counter-narrative.
Exactly, where the filmmakers present David Nyx as the antagonist, the Demiurge.
The author sees.
They assert they see Yahshua Messiah, King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and the opposing Psalm 2 conspiracy.
So the movie's villain is actually Christ in their interpretation.
Yeah.
And the heroes are the conspirators.
That seems to be the radical reinterpretation offered. Where the movie depicts darkness and Nyx's mismanagement, the author sees light and righteousness, asserting that the desperate controllers,
the plus ultra types,
presumably, having rejected repentance, they can try, but they will not succeed in their conquest of paradise or the blessed land.
Wow. That completely inverts the film's apparent message.
It really does, which leaves you with this important question to consider, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How much of the media we consume might be subtly shaping our view of the world? And what could be revealed if we start looking for hidden narratives, even interpretations as provocative and specific as the ones we've discussed today, hidden right there in plain sight?